Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again. Today we're going to be taking a first look at a game which comes out today by the strategy game studio called Afrika Korps. You can see SGS up top here for Strategy Game Studio and Afrika Korps. It is published by Avalon Digital, and so this, I'm not 100% sure if this is a game that's actually based on like the 1960s Afrika Korps board game that was made by Avalon Hill, or if this is just sort of spiritually a successor to that. It's definitely a board game style computer game, but I'm not sure, again, how true to the lineage of the Africa board game this is or not. Now, this is a game that's developed by, as I said, the Strategy Game Studio. They also did a game called Winter War, which looked at the Finnish and Soviet conflict before the German invasion in World War II, and is a similar style of game, but we'll go ahead and I haven't really played that game other than to say I've looked at it, but we're going to go ahead and jump in here and take a first look at Afrika Korps itself. First things first, there are some video tutorials in the game. There is also a manual that is located on the Steam page. It's a 111-page manual, so if you are looking at diving into the game, you can certainly look at that. I actually highly recommend that. So what I'm going to tell you here up front is that I did look through the video tutorials. I thought that would be only fair if I looked through the video tutorials on the game to try and get a sense of what I was doing before I shared the game. But I kind of view these first impression type videos as it being my intention not to show you how to perfectly play the game. I think it is a more honest reflection of what you, the gamer, is going to experience if you pick up and play a game for the first time. The fact is, the vast majority of gamers are not going to read a 100-page manual when they open up a game for the first time. They might look through 10 minutes of videos about the game to learn how to play, but they're not going to read a 100-page manual. Now, this is a board game type computer game, so that may not be as true of the folks who play board games. You're definitely more trained or used to reading through manuals, and so that's fine. But I am, for the most part, not a board game player. I do play some board games, but that's not sort of my bread and butter. I don't do a lot of it. And so I think if I'm showing you more of the impression of like, hey, you're watching a computer game video about a computer game that just came out. It is a board game style game, but the manual is very long. The video tutorials are very sparse. I don't think that they do an adequate job of telling you how to play. They give you a few simple things of like, here's how you move units. They don't really tell you what the different icons on the cards mean. They don't really tell you what you should be doing. It's a little bit weak, in my opinion, in terms of helping a new player through how to play this game. This game may be a tremendous experience, but my impression is if you pick up and play this for the very first time and you've never played a game by this developer before and you're not really into the board gaming space, you're going to struggle to figure out what the hell you're supposed to be doing and why and how the game's working. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of information on the screen in front of you. The game does not do a good job of communicating to you why things are happening. There's an indication that there's die rolls and there's numbers that presumably are related to those die rolls, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it when I was playing through this. So that's a little bit of a 2-minute disclaimer here up front for you guys to just keep in mind as you consider this game. Not telling you to buy it or not buy it. I don't generally do that kind of thing. I don't view myself as a reviewer, but as someone who picked up the game and tried to play it and tried to share it with you guys, I wouldn't say this is an intuitive game to pick up and play, and I wouldn't say the game has the tools or the support in place to help a player pick up and play this easily. The video tutorials do a decent job of telling you, like, this is how you move a unit, and this is how you have units engage, but it doesn't really do anything behind saying, like, here's how you win the game, or here's the objectives, you know, like, presumably being a historical gaming sort of savant that I am, so modest, I know. That the goal of the enemy in war, or the goal of a game about war, is to destroy the enemy. And so I guess that's a thing, and you probably want to take objectives in cities, but it doesn't really give you any indication of like, here's how you win. It's just sort of like, this is how you move units. This is how units engage in combat. If we take a look at this, it doesn't really even talk about cards or anything like that, which is an important piece of this game. This is a card-based, turn-based war game to a large degree. And so the tutorials to me feel pretty lacking. It seems very bare bones of just basically here's how you click units around on a map and not much else. It doesn't really do a good job of telling you how to play the game, in my opinion. Now, if we go ahead and we jump in here and we play, choose new game, we can see here there's a wide variety, or at least a decent variety of scenarios. There's 5 different ones, and they all have sort of different focuses. So Afrika Korps 1941, this is the grand campaign of the game that starts in April of 1941 with Rommel's first counteroffensive and lasts until late 1942, presumably when the Germans have to start retreating because of Operation Torch and the pressure coming from the other direction. On the North African continent. It also has some smaller scenarios. So there's an Operation BattleAxe, which takes place in 1941. This is an introductory scenario that covers a BattleAxe operation during and around the siege of Tobruk. You can see here there's Operation Crusader, which is a medium-length scenario starting in November 1941 and going through early 1942 following Operation Crusader. Afrika Korps 1942 is a short grand campaign, starts in January of 42 and goes till late 42. So essentially, if you wanted to avoid the 1941 operations and just focus on 1942, that is an option for you. And then there is an El Alamein scenario, which allows you to fight through the historical battle of Second El Alamein, starting in November of 42 and apparently going into early 1943, again, by which point the Germans are starting to withdraw away from the sort of Egyptian frontier and being pressed back ever so into their eventual perimeter that they would end up defending for a while in like the Tunisia area against both the British and the Americans. There is also an Operation E, which takes place before all of this and is a medium-length scenario, which I'm assuming this is like intended as a easy scenario. It's medium length, but it essentially is a historical British counteroffensive against the Italian forces in North Africa, and has a pretty substantial defeat for the Italians, historically anyway. I think this was one of those scenarios that really led to the Italians basically asking for the Germans to deploy the Afrika Korps eventually. But yeah, so that's what this is. We're going to play Operation E, 1940, and we will go ahead and jump in here. It starts with O'Connor's counterattack and ends in early 1941. It's a medium-length scenario, covers the failure of Operation E in September 1940, beginning with O'Connor's counterattack intended to drive the Italians out of Egypt and beyond. The game event cards allow full replay ability thanks to the numerous various situations that they create on the diplomatic military. Okay, that's just marketing talk. Estimated play time for the scenario, 2 hours. Favored side, none. If there's no favored side, how is it the hardest to play as the Commonwealth? I don't know the answer to that. If we click I, it gives us an introduction to the scenario. Gives us some map board information, gives us some victory conditions. Okay, so this is interesting. It looks like it's almost pulling up a little web page type deal, but this is kind of where you're looking to find out how you get victory points. So I was wondering about that. I had jumped into the scenario once before, and I was really not clear what the heck the victory points mean, but you can see here the Italian player earns 5 victory points if Benghazi is controlled at the end of the game, 5 if Agheila is controlled at the end of the game, 5 if Derna is controlled, and then 1 for Fort Madalena. Meanwhile, the Commonwealth earns 1 for Barda, 2 for Tobruk, 1 for Derna, and 1 for Benghazi. Those are bonus victory points. Immediate victory points is if the Commonwealth player controls Agheila in supply, and the Italian player wins if they control Mersa Matruth in supply, and if they control Tobruk fortress at the end of the game. There's additional information around reinforcements. There's some special rules around some Italian infantry. There's some information around cards and fog of war. So I guess at least in theory, it gives you a basic understanding of what you want to do to win the game. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in here. and let's take a look. One thing I will say definitely positively about the game is I do like the art style. I'm not a big fan of like card-based board game type deals like this game, but I do think the art style is pretty well done. And feels period while also feeling somewhat modern. Like if you zoom in here, you know, the art looks decent in any event. Maybe I'm just easily pleased. Maybe it's easy on a drab, you know, brown background of the desert. But overall, things are clear, easy to see, although not always terribly easy to understand. For example, the game just sort of plops me into this card draw, so like I pull up my cards and I have an option to draw cards. It's highlighting Wavell as one of the cards I want to draw. Not sure why, but it's highlighted in green. I don't know if this is intended as like a tutorial where I'm supposed to, you know, pick that card because it's good for me, but I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm just, you know, I guess thick armor, I'll click that. Does that mean I select it? Like, if we see here, thick armor and sandstorm were both on that last screen, and they both got drawn into my card deck. So I don't really know what any of this means. I mean, I can read through the individual cards, and I can see they give different perks or benefits, but I don't know why I picked Wavell. I don't know why it was highlighted green. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here, and there's no tutorial about cards, which feels really weird. Like, there's this really pretty in-depth tutorial about if you right-click on a province, you can get information through this inspector piece that tells you information about the province. You can get information about different regions on the map, different structures, different units. There's nothing in the game that tells me what the heck I'm supposed to do with cards other than they exist. Maybe it's straightforward to someone who's really into board games, which frankly, you know, I'm not as into. I would like to. I just don't have a lot of people to play with. But I don't know what exactly I'm supposed to be doing, why I'm supposed to be drawing this card, why this card's highlighted green. It could be a tutorial piece for all I know, but the game doesn't tell me. So I think that's a major gripe that I have, is the game doesn't really tell me why I'm doing certain things or why I should be doing certain things, but it also seems to want to handhold me through certain things, at least in this scenario. All right, so if we go ahead and proceed, but also the scenario isn't highlighted as a tutorial scenario, which, again, why are you telling me which cards to play? Again, here, we can see maybe those are just eligible cards, right? It wants me to choose reinforcements, so I can go with logistics, which means truckloads, unload from a cargo ship, give me one new logistical unit. Axis loses 1 victory point. I also have the option to have strong point. The entrenchment level of selected stack is increased by 1 level. Okay. And I also have depot. An army service manages to improve the logistical network you can put on the map. Depot unit in a friendly location with roads. So I guess maybe the green just means these are the cards I'm allowed to select. But now when I select depot, the logistics card is no longer selectable. I don't know why. If it's because they're both logistics cards, you can only select one logistics card maybe. But then now it's telling me to select either strong point or obstacles. So it's like I can only select one. Like, what if I want to select logistics? It doesn't let me. Okay, so I guess we'll select strong point. Strong point, select one affected stack. So where do I want my strong point to be? Well, if we take a look at the map here, we can see there's these different flag icons around different pieces or different hexes that indicate who controls what. I guess Fort Madalena is our most advanced position. So I suppose we don't really have troops there. There's just obstacles. So I guess I have to select a unit with this. But I'm probably going to be attacking with everyone, so I'm not sure that it matters. I guess I can select these guys. And then reinforcements, I suppose I can also select these guys. I'm not clear why that unit's... Oh, now I have to pick another card, which the only option I have is obstacles, I guess. Oh, and logistics now. So, like, it's telling me which cards I have to select, essentially, in here, but I don't really know why. Anyway, I need to deploy one reinforcing unit, or depots to one reinforcing unit. This is one of my larger ground units here with a bunch of, it looks like, are these Australian and British brigades? Or Indian, sorry. So I guess we'll deploy there. First depot will deploy to this unit. Validate. Select a destination stack for my logistics, I suppose. Validate. So it looks like one new depot, one new fort, and then a new truck or supply truck here. I don't really know what I'm looking at or why, but okay. Okay, so now the next phase appears to be an air movement phase. We've got a lot of air units that are on the map. Most of them are based further back. You can move your air units to base them closer to the front. So we've got, for example, some bombers and some, I think these are Hurricane fighters, or maybe they're Spitfires. I guess it may not matter. It just says it's a Royal Air Force squadron. So I can go ahead and kind of drag these guys across the map, and you can see if they can move somewhere. They've got a green indicator over the area they can move, but they only have so much range. So, right, you can see here they've got movement points available 14. The cost to fly them this far is 14. So what I'm actually going to do, and you can use your is it the D-pad? You can use that to move around the map as well, which seems useful because while you can't really drag while you've got a selected unit, you can't drag further across the map. So I'm going to move these guys to Matan Banguish. Actually, let's move them to El Daba and rebase them there. So we'll just sort of highlight and hover over the airfield, and the aircraft will fly there and rebase there. And then we're going to go ahead and, I think there's, or did I move the bombers too? Yeah, I thought I only moved the fighters, but apparently I moved the bombers too. Because they're part of the same stack, I suppose. Makes sense. All right, we've also got some Hurricanes or some fighters and bombers located here along the coast. We're going to fly them out over the water and see if I can't. Yep, I can. So I'm going to bomb these Italian troops here on the border, probably at Sid Barani. It looks like there's Italian troops at both Bira Emba and Sidi Barani, but we're going to move them towards Sidi Barani. And you can see there's some Italian armor here along the coast. You can see this explosion icon represents the fact that there's going to be an air attack on that section on the map. We'll go ahead and use our other bombers that are closer to the front to hit that section as well. We'll use these guys to hit, however you pronounce this name, this base in here. There's some infantry further south. And then we'll use some recon aircraft to sort of scope out what is also located here. So we've moved these guys. I don't think I can't really afford to attack with them since we've already switched their airbase. Let's move their airbase a little bit further. That way on the next turn they can be closer to the front. And I think that's pretty much all my air units. So I don't have any other air units as I sort of scope across the map. You can see Tobruk here, one of our objectives. Derna, another objective. Benghazi, one of our key objectives. And then the game-winning objective over here at Agheila. So that's the air movement phase. We don't actually resolve anything at this period in time. We just sort of get to see, like, there's going to be these air attacks. So if we move forward to the next phase, now we move into land movement. So we can coordinate our air units to attack these different bases, and we probably also want to attack with some of our ground units. So I'm going to take the 7th RTR Royal Tank Regiment, and I'm going to roll it into Sidi Barani. I don't really have any intelligence that I can see. I mean, I can see there is one enemy tank unit here. It does look like there are multiple chits, if you will, underneath that tank hex, as well as some infantry and multiple chits under the infantry hex here at Bir Emba. So I'm going to go ahead and move the 7th Royal Tank Regiment and the 3rd Brigade of British Infantry and 7th Heavy Artillery directly. How do I move? Can I not drag these guys? Okay, this is a little bit confusing. It was very simple to drag and drop air units. Alright, I'm confused. I have to select a card? Okay, so we can give O'Connor offensive. One allied land stack is led by O'Connor and receives 2 movement points bonus this turn. And then we'll also do reconnaissance. Whoops, not that. We'll also do reconnaissance. So reconnaissance, I think we'll assign. All right, so we've got some intel. Looks like there's some tanks and infantry south here. Oh, I guess that's all the recon I get. All right, so now I think we can move our ground units. We can. We'll move these guys into City Barani as one big stack. We'll also move this infantry unit here. It doesn't look like it can move all of the troops. So maybe we'll move one of the brigades here, the 16th Brigade, out of the stack. And see if they can't swing west. No? All right, well, let's just move the 5th Brigade and the 16th Brigade. I can't stack them for whatever reason, but I can move them both into the same hex. We'll also move some artillery. I can move all the infantry if I want to, but I probably should move some supply with them too, I would guess. Well, it doesn't actually want to let me do that, so I selected all my infantry, and so they're all going to attack here. So we're going to attack at City Barani and also at this other base, and then a little bit further south. I'm not going to move these guys, I don't think. Yeah, we can't. We don't have enough movement points. So we've got some armor down here as well, the 4th Armored Brigade. So I'm going to move these guys further south. Move that entire stack. Again, we got some decent intel saying there's some tanks and some infantry south here. I think they're a little bit weaker than us. And then we'll also move this recon car. I don't have enough movement points to move them anywhere. Okay, I guess that may be the maximum amount that we can move in this turn. Or at least it's not giving me an option to move them. We also have this armor back here. We'll move these guys to the front. And we'll stack them with this recon down here. And then eventually we'll move towards Solom in a following turn. We'll also move these recon cars. These guys could move into Solom directly, though. I'm going to move them here, actually. I don't really know how retreat works in this game, so that's another thing we've got to think about. Because the game doesn't really tell you these things. But I'm guessing if we attack along this 3-hex front, they'll fall back toward Bug or Solium. So we'll see. It doesn't look like we've got any information about Italian troops that might be sort of in the hinterland of the desert here in Libya or along the coast further west. So we'll have to see how these battles play out. But that's going to do it for our land movement phase. So we'll move into the next turn. And you can see there's going to be 3 different battles that are going to be taking place in this allied turn. One at City Barani, one at Bir Imba, and one at Sufi. So we'll go ahead and fight the battle at Sufi first. We've got some recon cars and some tanks deployed. We also have O'Connor deployed to one of these, so I think we get extra movement points. What am I clicking back here for? Give me the battle list. We'll do Sufi first. So we have to draw some cards. We can do Sandstorm, Thick Armor, Italian Demoralization. I don't know if I want to use any cards. Do I have to pick cards? Maybe Thick Armor. Alright. Artillery on both sides. The Italians don't have any artillery. We do. So we'll fire some artillery at the Italians. Looks like we missed here. There's some sort of dice roll, but again, I don't know what X16 means. Other than we missed. Our armor will attack, and you can see as we just sort of hit fight, it just, the units roll, the battle continues, the land units involved, everybody survives. There's no casualties in this first battle outcome, so we'll keep firing. It looks like the second independent artillery hit someone. An Italian obstacle was destroyed, but no units have been injured as far as I can tell so far. 7th Brigade just hit something. The 63rd Sirna Division got a hit. But it looks like the Allies have won the battle and driven the Italians back. So we now have a breakthrough phase where we can pursue the adversary, but I'm not sure I want to do that. So I'm not going to pursue there. I'm going to leave those units in position because we're going to be attacking along the front to the east, and I don't want to leave them a flank to retreat into. Again, I'm not sure how the fronts work. All right, so now we're going to do City Barani along the coast. Again, we get to choose the cards we want to use. So in this case, the enemy is a much stronger force by the look of it. They've got the 2nd E Gruppa of Italian tanks, the 3rd Genio division or brigade of the division, so 2 brigades and a armored unit. So we're going to go ahead and go with naval support, which will have 1 Axis land unit hit before the start of the battle. And then we're going to go with, I guess, shore bombardment. So we're going to hit them with that. I'm going to leave the rest of these cards unplayed, and then we'll go ahead and see what happens here. All right, so we'll fire. Axis trenches, obstacles, both destroyed, and their infantry brigade also takes a hit in that initial bombardment phase. Now our air units are going to soar in here and bombard the enemy. It doesn't look like they do anything, just a lot of misses. Now our armored and infantry units will begin the attack. Looks like the Italian tanks inflicted 1 damage on us, but we'll continue the fight. I have no desire to retreat here. 7th Artillery inflicts a hit, but then the enemy infantry division also inflicts another hit. I don't know what any of these numbers on these cards mean because there's nothing in the tutorial that tells me any of that information. I suppose, again, maybe there's a manual somewhere if I click on like an eye somewhere, but it's not very clear. It says combat factor, it says movement points, stacking value. Like, there's a lot of information on these cards that is not readily apparent to a inexperienced player what this means. It might all be really good information for an experienced player, but part of the intention of these videos is to say, like, if you jump right in for the first time, what's your playthrough gonna be like? And I'm gonna be honest, right now, I don't have a good sense of what's going on. And part of that is my own inexperience, and as I would learn the game more, I would learn these things. But part of this video's intention is also to tell you that if you're going to buy this game and you've never played a game like this before, or you are interested in the game but you haven't played a game by this developer, what's it going to be like for you? And as I showed you on the main menu, there's nothing there for you to understand, or there's no clearly called out menu. And so unless you spend a lot of time just sort of like attempting to parse through this information and playing very, very slowly, it's going to be a slow go for you. I'm not sure it matters for me to understand. I can see the Italian 3rd Genio takes 1 hit. The 3rd Brigade takes 1 hit as well. All right, so the Axis side is routed. I don't know why our 3rd Brigade took another hit, but it says the Axis side is routed and the Allies will pursue. We get a victory here. And we can pursue, and we will, to bug. So I'll click on that hex here, bug. And now we'll go ahead and fight Bir Emba, which is further to the south, to see if we can't make sure that we properly support all of our advances. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead with Italian demoralization. I'm not going to go with Sandstorm. Doesn't look like I can do shore bombardment either. We must be too far in from the coast. So we've got our own artillery that's going to fire in preparation. Doesn't do anything. Our air units are going to fire. It doesn't look like they're doing anything, but somehow the enemy is still routed, perhaps because we played that Italian morale card. And so there's no mobile force, there's no pursuit, it doesn't look like, out of that hex. Oh, shit. We are pursuing, but the enemy has retreated a large number of units into here, so we're going to go ahead and do a shore bombardment. We're also going to do Sandstorm. We may just elect to retreat, but we'll see. So we took 1 hit on the enemy brigade, and we also destroyed an enemy trench. We'll go ahead and bombard. Doesn't look like that's going to do anything. Royal tanks do get a hit. All right, so the 3rd Brigade takes a hit. Looks like they might have 1 hit point left. 2nd Gruppa takes a hit. We'll fight 1 more turn, see if we can't push the enemy back. Maybe their morale is low enough that they'll retreat. Yes, the enemy retreats. So we move into the pursuit phase. I think our brigade may have just been destroyed there, or maybe it's just because we're in the pursuit phase. In any event, we win another victory and drive the enemy back out of Bug into Solium. I can only pursue with my armor and my heavy artillery, however, to this hex. And so I think I'm going to stop my pursuit there. I don't want to overextend myself. So you can see here there were 4 battles that took place. All of them were victories for us. 3 of them were enemy routes, and 1 of them was just the enemy, I guess, fell back. So a good result on those lanterns. You can see the enemy formations have been pushed back. I don't recall seeing these guys down here in this this hex down here, so I don't know if they, like, retreated south. I'm not sure where those guys came from unless I just missed them. Air defense move. I'm just going to skip that. I don't know what I should be doing there. Maybe I should be flying cap or something over my units. And that's going to end our turn. So that ends the Allied turn 1. There are 4 Axis defeats on this turn. And 13 casualties. So the enemy lost multiple obstacles and trenches, but then they also lost the second Gruppa of Italian tanks. They lost 1 of 2 infantry brigades, by the looks of it. And something about 13 cards, I guess, maybe were played that turn. I don't really know what that means. So we'll go ahead and move forward here. Now this is going to move into the Axis turn, so we're going to see the Axis player draw cards or move reinforcements or do things like that. It's not going to really, you know, I'm going to see what cards the Axis gets and what cards the Axis plays, but that's about it. You know, you can see it looks like there's 3 Italian units that are unsupplied. I'm guessing those are the units that are back here behind the line. You can also see the enemy is going to attack some of our troops here. Apparently, there's a start of a battle over here at Fort Magdalena. 3 Italian units are going to attack barbed wire on the British side in the fort. And so the Axis are going to win a victory at that fort. No surprise, we had no troops there. Meanwhile, their tanks are going to go after some of our armored cars in a nearby hex. So this one's probably not looking as good for us. We'll keep fighting, and we'll just fight to the end and see what happens here. Looks like the Axis either retreated. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but we won the battle. Meanwhile, obstacles and air units of ours here at the Battle of Bir Kazma. 4 Italian infantry units here coming after our barbed wire fences and our fighter, or I guess our recon squadron. This isn't a fighter squadron. It's a recon squadron. The Axis side is they are routed by barbed wire? Really? Okay. So the British win 2 of the 3 battles. The siege is succeeded, so I'm guessing the fort surrenders to the Italians, which causes us to lose a victory point. You can see up here it's 8-4 now. 2 victories for the Axis, including, I guess, the siege, 1 defeat, 5 casualties, 1 for the British, 4 for the Italians, due to, looks like, loss of supply. These guys may have starved out. And that's gonna do it for that Axis turn. Looks like we get to draw more cards. I'm always a fan of shore bombardments, although it doesn't seem they do a whole lot. And you can see the new map here as we control the coast here from Bugbug City Barani. We're going to drive on Solium and maybe even Bardia next turn. You can see our positions over here. We do probably need to divert some of this armor that we were moving up from sort of Bir El Galer to retake Fort Magdalena, as well as maybe some of our recon cars here. The front is a little bit confused. These Italian troops here have no supply, as far as I can tell. Yeah, so I mean, that's easy if we bypass them and that we don't have to worry about them. But again, that's the end of turn 1. So we're moving into turn 2 of this battle, out of up to 14 turns. So we've been going for about 30 minutes. I think what I've done is I've shown you just the very basics. Looks like we also have some reserves back here in the east. Are these Australian or Anzac? Yeah, Australian Army. We've got 2 brigades, the 16th and 17th Aussie brigades. Actually, a 3rd one, the 19th as well, that are back here along the coast. So we'll probably want to shift them west to reinforce our advance. But I think the intention here was to, just to give you guys a quick look of what this game is. It's a first impressions. I like some of this. I like the way the game looks. I like the aesthetics of the game. I think the cards are relatively simple. I think the unit movement is relatively simple. I don't think, I don't know. To me, the video tutorials feel like they were half done. They basically said, this is how you move units. This is how units fight. It didn't do a really good job of explaining much, though, or kind of going through and saying, like, you're going to use armor for this, you're going to use air for this. There was a lot of implied knowledge or assumed understanding for the player. I think if you just picked this game up and you just played it and you had no experience with this developer or at least with this very similar style of game, I don't think you would have a very good time. You would or maybe that's not a fair assessment. I don't generally do reviews, but I do think you would want to make sure that you're looking forward to spending a fair amount of time just kind of going through each card and trying to understand what this means. Like, what does this 3 mean? If I hover over here, it tells me that's the stacking value. Well, okay, I'm assuming that implies like how many of these units I can stack on top of each other. Doesn't really tell me much though. You know, you can see some information down here. It can do combat, land, motorized, can pursue, can follow breakthrough because it's motorized infantry or mechanized infantry. That is indicated as well by the fact that they've got an APC behind here. But like, I don't know. It's just weird to me that I've got to like hover over different pieces to know like, okay, so their morale is 2. That's good to know. I guess that equates to this diamond figure here. They've got a 2 out of 2, which is combat factor, attack, and defense. I don't really know what that means, but okay, you know, like it's obviously some kind of combat value for attack and defense. But when you're fighting in combat, the game doesn't tell me what the combat value does or how that's factoring into the results. You kind of saw these numbers show up on the screen almost like a die roll, but it doesn't really explain any of that. I actually think the tooltips here are pretty well done now that I'm looking through them and telling you what the different items on the card mean. I guess I wish the video, I think what this is all coming down to is this game looks like it could be fun. It looks like a pretty interesting game. I've read some reviews of the previous game of this developer and that it had some problems with AI not being very good. But overall, I think there are elements here, the presentation, the cards, the tooltips, there are elements here that could make a really good game, assuming the AI holds up. My concern is just the lack of documentation. Again, I don't think 99% of gamers are going to read through a 100-page manual in the Steam page. As I said, there is a manual there. But I think if you're going to have video tutorials, do them right. Don't just do 4 that give you a very basic understanding of how to physically move and drag units across the map. Give me some that explain a couple of key tactics that maybe I want to use. Give me some that explain what the information on this card means and what the combat results really are telling me as they're unfolding. Give me a little bit more than what is here, and I think that could be a really interesting and fun game. The way it's laid out here today, though, I think it's a little bit of a half-done job. So maybe they'll patch it. Maybe they'll add some information like that. Maybe they'll make that a little bit more robust. Long-winded way of wrapping this video up saying I think it's an interesting looking game. If it's a topic, if it's a style of game that interests you, by all means pick it up. But please be aware you're going to want to spend a little bit of time figuring out what everything on the screen means before you actually start trying to fight. Because, again, the communication of what's happening and why it's happening in the game is lacking, and that needs to be worked on. And I'm sure someone who's really into board game conversions is going to tell me everything I just said is wrong, and that's fine. All I can tell you is my own impression as someone who doesn't play a lot of this style of game. I play a lot of turn-based war games, a lot of turn-based strategy games. I don't play a ton of board game conversions. I don't play a ton of sort of card chit-based games, and so this is different for me. And so these are my impressions based on my own knowledge and my own experience. But you decide what looks right for you or what you're interested in. There is a link in the description to the game's Steam page. It is available on Steam as of today. I'm not sure exactly what time it comes out, but it will be available today. And let me know your thoughts. If you think this video was crap, let me know. If you think this game looks awesome, let me know. If you think the game doesn't look awesome, let me know. I'm curious to see what you guys all think. That's enough of me rambling. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.